Oh, hello. In today's video, we're going to talk about making your hobby an obligation and using that social obligation to get your minis painted. And we're going to introduce you to the tale of 6 hobbyists that we've been running on the Tabletop Impulse Discord. So, just in case you don't know and you're not familiar with the sort of cultural lexicon of a tale of, right, and its significance in the Warhammer hobby, this comes from a classic White Dwarf series, A Tale of Four Gamers. And the basic principle is that it follows 4 people as they buy, build, paint and play with an army over the course of usually a year. And then they paint and play to an agreed points limit, which goes up every so often. And a few people on my Discord really wanted to try something like this, especially as we are mainly a kill team focused community and a kill team focused channel, but there's quite a few people who have that itch and that urge and want to collect and paint that bigger army for those bigger army games like 40k, but they aren't used to having all this stuff to paint. And even if you really love, like I really love Sisters of Battle, but having to paint like your squad of basic troops and then another squad of basic troops and then another squad of basic troops, it is, no matter how nice the miniatures are and how much you might like the background and how much you might love the paint scheme, it is less interesting sometimes than painting like a kill team and then a totally different kill team. So in order to try and inspire us to achieve that sort of thing of getting the fully painted army on the table and getting to look at it as one big collection and being impressed with yourself, we decided to do A Tale of Four Gamers. Now, a couple of obvious problems. We won't be playing any games because we don't all live in the same city. Unlike the White Dwarf staff who all work in the same building and all live in Nottingham, we don't live in the same city and we don't even all live in the same country. So that's the first difficulty. The second difficulty we have is that more than 4 people wanted to participate. So there were 6 of us that wanted to do it. All Tabletop Impulse members in the members only section of the Discord, although actually the Tale of 6 stuff, our blogs are publicly visible, so, and it's not the first time I'm going to say this, but if you join the Discord, you'll be able to see much more about the journeys of the 6 people in the Tale of 6 Hobbyists in far more detail. So let's explain exactly what we've been doing and why. The plan is essentially to paint 250 points of Warhammer 40,000 each quarter, right? And you have to pick one army and stick to it. Now, you're allowed to add things like, assassins, inquisitors, whatever, anything that could, or demons for a chaos army, anything that could, like, go on the table with that army and be part of a legal army is fine, right? So it's a bit weird in that it's a hobby thing, but we're using gaming rules to constrain the hobby thing, right? So we're talking about points, and we're talking about it being like all part of the same army. So we have monthly hangout and hobby sessions, and these are public actually, so if you're on the Discord, you can just pop in and say hi, So we have monthly hangout and hobby sessions where we all join a Discord voice channel with the camera and microphone, and we're just sitting at our desks painting, and different people are talking, kind of like a live stream. If you tune into the Tabletop Impulse live streams, instead of me being the only one doing any talking, there's actually different members of the community talking, so I can actually get some painting done as well, which is quite nice. And then we have our more formal kind of quarterly meetings, where we talk about what we've painted, what we're going to paint like next time, lessons learned, things like that. And we reached the end of the first quarter a little while ago. We had our first monthly meeting, and I said that I would do a video kind of showcasing what everyone had got painted for their first 250 point block, right? But before I get into our individual armies, I want to talk a little bit about this concept of making your hobby an obligation really works for me. I get quite a lot of joy from the feeling of accomplishment when you look at a collection of painted miniatures, and it makes me really happy, and it makes all the good chemicals race around in my brain. I do enjoy the physical act of painting, but far more of my enjoyment, and it's not just miniature painting, it's a lot of things, comes from having the thing being done and getting to look at it, having that sense of accomplishment and achievement. That makes me happy, right? Not everybody is the same, and I understand that for some people, this idea of having deadlines and things that you would normally associate with the workplace domain and applying them to, your low-key, low-stress hobby domain doesn't work for you. And so I'm not saying this is for everybody, but for me, I love this kind of thing. That's why we have we have this Tale of Six on the go, and at the same time we're doing the White Dwarf Hobby Bingo, and at the same time, of course, the Kill Team challenges. The Night Lords are coming along, right? They're delaying my next Tale of Six chunk because I've got to paint for the Kill Team Hobby Challenge, right? So, but I do like challenges like this because they inspire me to actually hobby with my free time rather than just spending it sitting and playing video games. Nothing wrong with video games, but I find personally, if I spend a week or two just playing video games in my free time, I eventually encounter a feeling of dissatisfaction that I've not produced anything, right? So your mileage may vary, but I really find, and presumably the other 5 people who have agreed to do this, really find that this kind of formal structure helps us to get stuff painted, and that makes us feel good. So I'm going to start with my stuff because it's my channel, and I'm going to assume that you all really care about what I'm doing. So I chose to paint Sisters of Battle. Now, I already have a large collection of Sisters of Battle, but very few of them are actually painted. I think about almost 1,000 points was painted, but I have like loads of the things. And yes, it might have been nicer and more in the spirit of the tale of like 4 gamers or 6 hobbyists in this case to start a brand new army and like buy things and paint them and buy things and paint them and buy things and paint them. But I decided a little while ago that I really only want one 40k army because I play a lot of different games. You know, I want to play 40k, Horus Heresy, Old World, Age of Sigmar, Kill Team, Star Wars Shatterpoint, perhaps Warcry, perhaps Middle Earth. Like, I want to play a lot of games, most of them Games Workshop games, right? But what I don't want to do is just play. If you just play 40k, then absolutely have 2 or 3 main armies for 40k. But I found that I kept getting distracted by the new shiny thing that Games Workshop had made and starting new armies before the army that I had is finished. So I'm really trying to focus down on my sisters. So I decided to looked at my collection of things that I owned and hadn't painted, right? And I also looked at the Hobby Bingo card where I need to tick off squares like rank and file and vehicle. So in the spirit of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, decided to paint a squad of Battle Sisters, Junior Tharuta, and a Rhino, right? Which will get me a vehicle square and a rank and file square on the Hobby Bingo card as well. So when I did this and put it together, it came out at 265 points. The points values do change and fluctuate for 40k, which is one of the downsides of like attaching your hobby challenge to the gaming side of things, even a little bit. But there we go. And especially with the new Sisters Codex coming out, we're expecting big changes to the points coming up in the future, which is interesting. Yeah. I found it to be slow progress. So I generally am a procrastinator. I know that about myself. I usually get things done really quickly in the last minute, like in what has been termed deadline mode. Unfortunately, I ran afoul of something that I have previously run afoul of, which is I left things until I had about a week left to go, and then I felt really ill in that last week. I had some kind of flu or cold or something, so I think I was just a week late finishing my Battle Sisters squad. But it's okay because I decide when the video comes out, so all my stuff's finished. It's good to be king. Now I'm happy with how the models came out. Right, obviously, hands were a little bit tired by the fact that I already have some models painted up for this army. And one of the things with army painting is, by the time you finish painting an army and painting the same thing, you improve so much because you're painting the same bits and the same techniques that the stuff that you painted first for that army is now kind of much worse than the stuff at the end of the army. Which is interesting, but the other side of that is I was a little bit constrained to not like conspicuously trying out new techniques like I might do on a kill team. Not trying out new things or trying to push myself really hard because I did want the force to look cohesive with the stuff that I'd already done, which is one of the things about army painting, right? You start in a certain way and everything really, unless you're painting like Harlequins where, the squads can look really unique from each other. Generally speaking, you want things to have that consistent look, even while you learn and improve, which is an interesting line to tread actually, and not something we think about that much. So for my next block, I'm going to be painting an Exorcist and a second Battle Sister squad, and once again, it's inspired by Hobby Bingo. Got to get those 2 vehicles in, and it's got to come from 40k from this, and I've got to get those two battle line, not battle line, rank and files in, right? So that's what's happening. I will say Sisters of Battle, like basic Sisters of Battle squads, really quite large, really detailed miniatures, and they're 10 points each. And so I end up painting for a lot more detail compared to some of the other people that I could mention. And in fact, I will mention next. Like, so this is 11, like 10 infantry, the little cherub, a big special character, and a vehicle. By contrast, my good friend Ouroboros, or Oro, painted 5 Terminators, 2 characters, and 2 things equivalent to the cherub, which is a fair bit less, but that's okay. Oro is a long-time Dark Angels player, kind of like me and my sisters, but he is essentially rebooting his army. So earlier this year, Dark Angels came out, especially, and their big focus for the plastic kits was on Deathwing. And Oro has always been he has played Dark Angels, but I could really say he's played Deathwing for a long time. He loves Deathwing, and Deathwing are one of these funny forces, aren't they? Where in some editions of 40k they're really, really awful, and then sometimes they're really, really strong, because it basically comes down to how busted is Deep Strike in a particular edition of 4K. That's not the only thing, but that's what it comes down to. But he's been Deathwing through the rough times and the smooth times, right? Now, Oro's not someone, like, when I first started playing against Oro at 40k, literally he would be like, okay, I've bought and painted this, and by painted I mean, if it was a squad of Deathwing Terminators, he would spray it with a bone spray, so you could easily see as gaming pieces what they were, and he'd be like, yeah, that's done. I don't enjoy painting, I love playing the game. They're bone Terminators, they're obviously Deathwing, and he would spray them one colour, almost as a courtesy to his opponent. And he's gradually over time, in little bits of steps, been kind of encouraged to paint. And this is some of the best work I've seen from Oro to date. Like, he's continually improving over time with his painting. And he was trying some techniques from the GW YouTube channel involving watered down skeleton horde to paint his bone armour, right? Now, he's not happy with it, right? His words on the Discord is that he thinks his Terminators look splotchy and uneven. From the photograph that he's posted, that I've put up here, they don't look splotchy and uneven to me. They look pretty cool. Obviously, if you pick the model up and scrutinise it, you're going to see things. But in the photograph provided, I think they look really cool, really neat, really smart. I think they look great. Yeah. He's more happy with the way his characters turned out, and I think he should be. The characters look really interesting. I like the shade of blue he's done for the librarian. That's quite novel. Normally you see librarians and they're almost indistinguishable from ultramarines, which is kind of funny when you see an ultramarines librarian. It just looks like another ultramarine. You're like, oh, but he's gone for this really kind of almost electric blue on his librarian, which is pretty cool. Cheeky bit of object source lighting on the teleport home, which is pretty cool. And the chaplain looks pretty good as well. Black's one of those things where people say, well, black's really easy to paint. It can be very easy to paint, but it is, I've sort of painted a lot of black power armor, but it is quite different to paint. Like, you have to go edge highlights on black, you have to do various things with it to make it look, because you don't have that, you can't just bung a wash on it, right? That is robbed from you. So while it can be pretty easy, it is a different skill as well. So that's pretty cool. Now, for Oro's next block, he's going to try an alternate recipe for bone, he said. And he's planning to do 5 Deathwing Knights and a Blade God Ancient. And having had a look in the Discord thread today, he's basically done the Deathwing Knights. I think they just need basing. And I think he said that he'd done a similar technique with the Skeleton Horde, but he'd applied it in a slightly different way based on the advice he found from another YouTube video. He still feels unsatisfied with the bone. I think for his third block, he's trying a yet third way to try and do the bone Terminators. But yeah, so he's not done the Blade God Ancient, I don't think, but he's almost finished his stuff, which is pretty cool considering I haven't even started, right? But the deadline for the second block isn't going to be until like what do we say, like September the 5th or something like that. So quite a way. I'm telling myself I've got quite a few weekends between now and then, right? Hopefully I don't get ill again after leaving it until the last minute. Nightfall. Now, Nightfall is the main advocate and organiser for Tale of Six Gamers. I think because he really wants a 40k army. He's never, as far as I can see, built and painted up a whole 40k army. He had this idea for his Synthwave Tyranids. Now, you've seen some of these before, because he entered them into the Kill Team competition. I'll explain that again in a minute. But there is a new paint scheme for him for Tale of Six Gamers, essentially. Tale of Six Hobbyists, I should say. And he's the one, if anyone, he's really doing this down the line, how it should be done. It's a brand new army to him, a brand new colour scheme, everything's brand new. And if you go to his Discord thread, you'll see all this kind of little speculation about, should I paint it this way? Should I do it this way? Should I do the base like this? Should I do the bases like that? Which there isn't any for me, because on mine it's just, well, I'm going to keep painting them like Systems of Battle, like I've already taught myself how to do. So there's no agonising over the sort of colour choices. So that's really nice to read. It's a really inspiring synthwave colour scheme as well. I'm really in awe of people who, I like things that are painted like they look on the boxes, but part of it is that I don't have the confidence to think of, some things I've painted in colour schemes that I've come up with, but it's very few and far between. I don't think I have the confidence to think of things that would look good and just stick with them. Now, Nightfall has painted far more than 250 points, because he, like I say, did a Compendium Tyranids kill team, a high fleet, right? And then he decided they didn't count. So in this picture, you've got his 250 point block, and then also like some of the extra models he uses to make it into a kill team. So that takes it to like a 410 point total. So in theory, next block, Nightfall only needs to paint 90 points. So if he needs to take a quarter off, he can do that, right? So his full collection is a Neuro Tyrant, 5 Tyranid Warriors, a Tyranid Prime, 3 Von Rhino Reapers, 5 Genius Dealers, and and they look awesome. They really do look awesome. Like, really arresting and awesome. Big fan. Big fan. We're going to put Jin of the Shep. So, Jin set out to paint. So, Jin, as far as I can see from what he's written, Jin hasn't ever painted up a 40k army, right? He's a skirmish fella, right? And he set out originally to paint 20 Corsair Void Reavers as the core for his Corsair-themed Eldar army. And he's written, if you like reading fan fiction, right, he's written a lot of background for his guys in his thread. Like, he's written page after page after page of background. Really interesting. And he had a really interesting way of painting these guys up. So he doesn't glue them to the bases. When he's painting them, he glues them to the base at the end, which seems really weird to me, but it brings him joy. That's fine. And as you can see in the photograph, he painted up the two on the far right to finished first, to sort of have an idea that what he had in his head was good. And then he got the rest of them, the other 8, kind of almost finished. But unfortunately, life got in the way. He wasn't able to complete 2 squads. But he had painted 5 Striking Scorpions in the same window as part of a kill team, so he decided to include those, which got him closer to the 250 point goal. Not quite there, but life got in the way, right? One really interesting thing about Jin's army plan is that the different squads of Corsairs are going to have totally different colour schemes as well, because they're little pirate bands that have just kind of come together briefly right around this prince, and then they're going to leave again, I think is the thing. From what I read, I gather that Jin's never tried to paint a whole army before, and he's finding it challenging from, how I would put it, like not treating each individual model as its own project, and spent lavishing loads of time on it, and then going, I've got another 9 of these to paint, right? Which is, army painting is a skill in and of itself, and knowing where to put in extra work, and where to sort of, I don't want to say cut corners, but where to just kind of get on with it and get it done, is a real skill. Tron's painting Custodes. Fun enough, a lot of these Custodes he bought from me, because my wife had a big resin Custodes army. We sold it off because we got too much Warhammer, right? And so that's where some of this stuff is from. So it's really nice. If you have stuff that's sitting around in boxes, not doing anything, and then you sell it, and the person you sell it to immediately loves it and starts like lavishing the hobby on it that it deserves. I get vicarious joy from looking at Tron paint the things that I know were sat variously in cupboards and under beds in our house. That makes me really happy. So, just a personal aside, really. Tron is kind of breaking the whole it's 250 points thing, because it's kind of really hard to paint only 250 points of Custodes. So he's done a Shield Captain, an Alaris Terminator, and 2 squads of Custodes that I think have different funky resin spears, which comes out to like an absurd number, like 400, 500 points or something. But he's not painted many more models than the rest of us, and he's really enjoying painting them. Like, Custodes are legendarily easy, because you can spray things gold and then dry brush them gold, and then you're most of the way done. But if you look at some of the extra details and flourishes he's added on, like, you can see that he's not just doing that. Obviously that's a starting point, but he is putting in a lot of extra effort. Big fan of Tron's Custodians. I think they look really, really good, really, really smart. Got no idea how many points he's going to end up with if he paints at this rate for a whole year, right? It doesn't feel sustainable in terms of the number of Custodes you could practically need to use to play a game of Warhammer 40,000, but they look pretty sweet. So, we and more than anything, it's a hobby thing, right? Last, but certainly not least, we have Alex McCleanery. So Alex is painting knights. Decided he was going to do knights. Started off with this. I forget the name of the knights. They all blur into one. But this is one of the larger knights. So all the large knights, I think, are more than 250 points by themselves anyway. Right? Certainly this one is. And you might think Knights is easy mode for this because you only got to paint one model. And I can totally see why you'd say that, because it is possible to paint a Knight quite simply with a lot of sub-assemblies and coloured spray paints, right? And get it looking pretty good quite quickly. Pretty effective. But that is not the route Alex has gone down. So Alex has actually failed. I don't like the word fail, but he failed to paint his 250 points within the time allowed. But it's only because he's gone down this whole garden path and these photos that I've put on here don't even show the work he did for the skeleton of the knight before even touching the plates. Like, the whole thing's all weathered up with weather and verdigris and all different things. And he's really got, like, those shin plates that he's shown in close-up are beautiful. I mean, yes, it's not all freehand, it is decals, but the way the decals are weathered in, the way they really look like part of the shin, and the weathering and the crust of mud along the bottom, like, it looks beautiful. And yeah, it's not actually finished yet, but there's by the time you get to this army done, it's going to be one of the best looking armies I've ever seen. Like, and it's an original colour scheme as well, which is pretty cool. But it's just the weathering and the work on that is really, really awesome. Really, really, really happy with it. And he's really proud of it. And that brings us to the end. So I guess, a shorter-ish video today. Just rambling about the tale of 6 hobbyists that we're doing on the Discord. Couple of things I'd like to say before I go. First of all, what do you think of the 6 different armies? Who stands out as being the coolest in your mind, right? Let me know. It's definitely mine, right? But, I would encourage everybody who isn't on the Discord to click the link in the description and join the Discord, so they can come and have, if nothing else, they can come and have a proper look at the blogs. The Discord is free. You don't have to be a channel member to join the Discord. A lot of people assume that, because a lot of channels have members-only Discords, like a lot of them. But no, mine isn't, right? So you can do that for free. Of course, if you want to become a channel member and give me a monthly amount of money every month, you certainly can do that. And a big thank you to all my members, but especially Nightfall and Massive Crit, who are both subscribed at the highest tier. I'd love to know in the comments if you have a view about this hobby obligation thing. Like, who's with me? Who appreciates deadlines so they actually get things done? Who thinks they get more joy out of observing their finished thing than they do actually painting it? Or who is more relaxed about things and just enjoys something that they can paint at their own pace? Like, I'd be interested to get a discussion on that going in the comments, I guess. Alright guys, thank you very much. And that is me for this video. I'll see you again on, when do we do it? We do it Tuesday. Yeah, I'll see you again on Tuesday. Don't even know what we're talking about on Tuesday. It could be anything. Could be anything. I'm looking forward to it though. And then of course a live stream on Wednesday and so on and so forth. Alright, cheery bye folks. Have a great evening. Bye bye. Bye bye.